Welcome to another episode of An Extraordinary Take, where we share extraordinary ideas and visions with extraordinary people. My name is Sibonisile Ngubane-Khosa, and I'm so excited that you've taken the time to join me as we learn and grow together. Let's get into it, shall we? My name is Bo. I am your host, and I'm so excited to be back here. In fact, this is the first episode for 2026, which is really, really exciting. It comes a little bit later in the year, but in my own terms, it is absolute perfect timing. I have really missed the space, and it's so exciting to be back, but I'm also glad that I didn't really get into the frenzy of feeling like I had to start when everybody else was starting. And, I did notice I won't call it a frenzy really, but I took a bit of a break from social media just because I wanted really to not be bamboozled by everything that was going on and everybody's resolutions and plans and highlight reels. But when I went back on, I was like, oh my goodness, everybody I know that has a podcast has already started posting and has already started shooting and all of these things. And I always knew that my plan was to start towards the end of February. And as I was watching all of that, I did kind of get a little bit sidelined and start feeling like, oh my goodness, maybe I should have also started earlier. But I then just had to go back to the promise that I made with myself and the agreement that I made with myself to not do things for the sake of doing them, but to really have intention behind everything that I do. And it was important for me to come back this year with a real good understanding of what it is that I want to communicate, what it is that I want to cultivate in this space, because I really don't take it for granted, and I don't take it lightly. And I really do want to bring my best self as far as I possibly can, when I come into the space. So that was important for me. So I started my year with the Chinese. I was there. I think their year started it was like mid-Feb, and I love the idea of that because the Western calendar kind of goes at the beginning of the year, and I like that their framework is January is a time of reflection. It's not a time to start planning. It's not a time to start setting new goals. It's a time to really be quiet, to reflect, to get a sense of what has happened before and what it means for where you're going in the future. So I love learning from different cultures and from different people. I've spoken about this before. And when I kind of got their sense of how they do things, I was like, I think I like this. I think I enjoy this. Just the idea of not being sort of cajoled into, okay, this you live on a calendar type of thing, whereas that's not necessarily how it always works out. So I enjoyed that idea and I adopted it. I did the same thing last year and I found that it was really helpful. Around February, in fact, we went away, and that was a time that we took to really reflect. That's the time that we put together our vision boards and all the things, not in January. And I just felt like it worked so beautifully. And it then also made sense for my reflection time to be also in Feb for me to start, because then it gives me, it's from Feb to Feb type of thing. But yeah, so that was kind of my thought process, and it worked really well for me. But I have to say thank you so much for your patience. I mean, if you're tuned in here, it means you've subscribed. It means you were waiting. And so I'm glad that you're here. And I've got so much to share. I'm so excited to be back. This episode, really, we're easing into it. We're not doing a lot. We've got amazing guests coming up the next couple of weeks, and I'm really excited about that. But I really just wanted to start today with sharing where I am at, and hopefully when we interact in the comments, you guys can tell me as well. But really easing into things and getting a sense of also what my intentions for the year are. I spoke a little bit now just about how in February last year we went away, we did a whole mood board, a whole vision board, we prayed over it, and it was beautiful. We saw so many of those things come into fruition. But this year, I decided not to do that, and that's what I kind of want to talk about. I had planned to do the same thing again, but I just made the decision that I'm not quite ready for more resolutions. I'm not ready for a kind of another to-do list. And I wrote a post a couple of weeks ago about how I'm kind of opting out of the self-help mania for a little bit, or the self-improvement hamster wheel, just because it never ends. And I felt a sense this year, at least for myself, I felt the sense that I no longer want to treat myself as this never ending project, like this project that just never gets done. Constantly under review, constantly being worked on, constantly being torn apart, constantly adding new things, to such a degree that I think when we're constantly doing that, we rarely ever really look back and think, okay, in all these lists and all these things that I've been putting together, that I've been doing, that I've been setting out for myself, how much of it have I actually done? How far have I grown? And to actually celebrate those milestones, to celebrate how far you've come, and to see what you need to kind of double down on. And so for me, the beginning of 2026 felt like a time for pause. And it's interesting because so much around 2026, by the way, so much around 2026 is about like how fast-paced things are going to be. And, you know, I make space for that. But I think in my own personal capacity, just really felt like a time for reflection. It felt like a time to slow things down a little bit more and to not necessarily add more to my plate. My goals when it comes to my own body of work, right? Who I'm trying to be as a person is intelligence, emotional intelligence particularly, is being able to vocalize my needs, is being able to understand my needs myself, and be able to actually provide those for myself, and not necessarily outsource it to other people, is to feel enough, right? To feel a sense of enoughness in myself, to cultivate great relationships, to continually grow in my spiritual life, to really, really feel like the more I live, the closer I get to understanding myself and understanding my maker. So there's a lot of things that I've been working on over the years. And when I look at where I am, I felt like I've come far enough. I kind of want to ride the wave of what I already started doing, and not add something new. I think there is a place, you know, for rest, even when it comes to self-improvement, even when it comes to the things that, even when it comes to growth, even when, you know, like if you look at the seasons and you look at farming or whatever space it in, there's nothing that's growing all the time. There is a time and space for there to be quiet, for there to be reflection, and no activity. And what I'm trying to look at this year is really what that looks like for me. I am a self-improvement junkie, so one way or another, I will find a way to add something, but I'm really, really trying to tone it down. And what helped me get there, and what I want to actually talk about today, is I realized that part of the reason why sometimes we feel so disgruntled and anxious about where we are in life is because we're just constantly going. And in my case, I realized there isn't, I don't want to call it a balance. I want to call it an agreement. I want to talk about there being an agreement in the triad of body, mind and soul, right? So we know that most things exist in triads. We've got the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And in our existence, it's the body, the soul, and the mind. Some say spirit, mind, body. And towards the end of last year, in fact, most of last year, I shared a lot about my own health issues. I was struggling a lot health-wise. And it started not to make sense to me. And the reason why it started not to make sense to me is because I was like, spiritually, I feel like I'm in such a great place. My mind, I feel so connected to my mind. I think in the triad, mind is top there because so much of what I do comes from what I think about. And I love my mind. I love the ideas that it comes up with. Even the fact that I can be in this space, like I'll think about something and it'll be like the most beautiful thing. Last year I did a TED Talk. All of that came from my mind. I love that. So I think I identified a lot with my mind. I didn't really see that much of a differentiation. And I thought that because my mind and I were so in sync, it meant that the rest of myself was also in sync. But what I started learning and what I started questioning rather was, if I am in such a good space spiritually and I feel so connected to God, and I feel so connected to my mind and how I'm able to reason and how I'm able to understand things and how I'm able to communicate, where is the disconnect? Why is it that I don't feel well in my body? And what really was a turning point for me was I had a really difficult experience, and I kind of intellectualized it in the sense that I was like, life happens. This is an experience of life and whatever, which I often will do. I grieve certain things, like we've lost so many people in the last year. And so there was a lot of grieving. There were a lot of even friendship breakups that were really, really difficult. But what I will usually do is I'll think about it and I'll be like, you know what, it happens. People grow apart, and they get to a point where there's no synergy anymore. And I think that in my head that meant that I was feeling those things, but I think I was just thinking them. I was seeing them from an intellectual perspective. But what I started to notice towards the end of the year is that even though I had made sense of all of the trauma and the losses that I had experienced, my body felt so tired. Tired is not even the right word. I felt so lethargic. I would wake up and it felt like I couldn't move, I'd go downstairs, it was literally like I was trying to drag my body along with me. And this did not make sense to me because I felt well. I felt like I was okay and I could make sense of all the things, So then I started thinking, wait, does my body have feeling too? Is it possible that when I have been grieving something and then I made sense of it, my body is also grieving too, and that it also has its own timeline for grieving? And that was an incredible moment for me, because then I started recognizing, and I was like, oh my goodness, of course, if the body is an entity in and of itself, and it's an intelligence in and of itself, then it exists and it feels and it takes things on. And there's a whole thing. There's an entire book about how the body keeps score. Apparently it's really, really traumatic. So I've never read it. But essentially the idea around the book is that when certain things happen to us, they are stored in certain places in our body. So I started looking into this idea and kind of flirting with this idea of, what does it mean for me to treat my body as its own entity. I know that we're mind. There's mind, there's spirit, there's body or mind, body and soul. But I think out of the two, the one I had neglected the most was the body. And this is an interesting dichotomy because we're taught since we're young that our bodies are a temple. But it's such a weird teaching because it's like our body is a temple, but then there's also so much teaching about how much we shouldn't care about the body. It's like you shouldn't identify with it, which of course is good because you can't. And I think what we're being taught is not to go extreme, right? Not to only see yourself as a body or become a person that is overly obsessed with the body. But I think in our teachers' intentions of making sure that we're not superficial people who are body, what we've actually gone the reverse, where we don't even recognize the body as part of this triad and what that means. And you can see that in just how we live, what we eat, what we do, how much we drink, how little or how much we work out. Some people do way too much, which actually causes so much stress on the body. There's really such a disregard, I think, in our culture for our bodies, and even the people who consider themselves to be regarding their body or to be respecting their bodies do it at such a level that it's actually tarnishing their body, constantly improving the body, constantly nipping and tucking it, pun intended, so that it looks a certain way. It's just this thing. And I realized in my case that for the longest time, if not forever, my body has been this thing that I've just been dragging around with me. And I kind of go, okay, we're doing this now. Okay, now we're doing gym. Now we're doing yoga. Oh, now we're on a carnivore diet. Now we are now I'm vegan. Now I'm cycling. Now I'm like, you just do what I tell you to do when I tell you, and we just go. And there isn't an acknowledgement of it being a temple. And if you think about a temple, there's an honoring there. There's an acknowledgement of what it represents, that it houses something important, that it is a place of worship. It is a place that when you come into it, there should be a sense of quiet, right? Like a sense of really, I think reverence is the right word, but I don't think that we treat it that way, and we use that verse kind of in a very one-sided way. Anyway, at least that's been my experience. So when I started asking those questions, and the reason why I was asking that questions is because I felt like, as somebody, like, I really, really believe that I'm here to experience the full abundance of God's love, right? One of my favorite verses is, when David says that I will know the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. And I mean, I grew up, I believe, like, part of what I also hate about colonization is that how the word was introduced to Black people was like, your riches are in heaven. So then they could take everything from us. And we're just like, it's fine, we can be poor now, but our riches are in heaven. But David speaks of something else. He says like that, I will see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living now. And I think that's just such a beautiful way to look at what our experience here should be like. And I think often it's such an experience of like, it's just going to be so hard. It's always going to be hard. It's always going to be difficult. Like you're not going to, there's not abundance. Just take what you can, And for me, I'm like, I'm here to experience all of it. And if I'm going to experience all the grief, if I'm going to experience heartbreak, and I'm going to experience it to such heavy degrees, I want the same for my joy, right? I want it to have the same, I want to experience the same intensity of my joy in the way that I experience my grief. I think the idea is to feel all of it while we're here. It's to have the experience of all of it and really revel in the idea of what it means to be here, what it means to be human, and understand why God put us here. So in my head, I was like, it doesn't make sense for me to believe that I'm here to experience the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living, and that I'm experiencing it from like a mental perspective. I'm experiencing it spiritually, but it's not translating when it comes to my body. It's not that I think there's no space for sickness, but I do think that often sickness is indicative of something else, something bigger, that is kind of overlooked. I like the idea. There's somebody I was listening to once, and they were, it's a book, Conversations with God, and they were speaking about how disease is actually when there's dis-ease in the body, right? Where there's ease that hasn't been looked into, and I like the idea of that, because a lot of the times, I mean, there's so much that also can't be explained, and it's not to say that every sickness that there is comes from that, but I did start thinking about, surely there's something to it. So then I started thinking about, what would it mean to not create a balance, but to create an agreement between this triad of mine? What would it mean for me to get myself, or rather to get my body and my mind and my soul to work towards one goal? Because what I was starting to realize was that there was a heavy disconnect that I had not realized before. And I'm so grateful that time of just feeling lethargic and being sick allowed me to ask questions like that. And so then I came across this quote, and it was saying that your body listens to everything that your mind says. And I thought, sure. Man, do you know the numerous thoughts that go through our heads on a day-to-day basis about what we hate, what we wish was different, whatever, when it comes to our bodies? And I was thinking, like, if my body hears all of that, and if it stores it, what has it been receiving from me? Like, what messages have I been transmitting to my body over the years? If my body hears everything that I say, or everything that my mind says, what are those messages, and how does that translate to how I feel in my own body, but also how does it translate in how my body feels with me? And to be honest, when I was doing my own reflection, I was like, I don't think it's good. And I don't think that I've ever intentionally really tried to cultivate a relationship with my body that is healthy. I try to do it with my mind, where I'm like, let's not think that. That's negative. Let's reframe it like this. My body, not so much. And it's crazy considering the incredible intelligence that this body is, and what it does, right? And so I realized, okay, something is off, and I need to kind of try and find a way to get to a place where these things can start working together. Okay. And how I started was I wrote a letter. I wrote a letter to my body. And in it, I kind of apologized, I was like, man, I'm sorry. Because you were given to me, you were gifted to me so that you could house my soul, that you could house my inner being. And I don't think I have honored you enough. I don't think I've treated you with the reverence that you deserve. I don't think that I have recognized how hard, sometimes over time, how hard you have had to work just to keep me going, considering the little effort that I have put to make sure that you run effectively. Simple things like water, when I was younger, I could go days and I'd just maybe have like one glass of water. And nutrition was not a big thing in my family. We weren't taught about the importance of fiber. We weren't taught about the importance of having fruits. So really, for the most part, I'm 33 now. In all the 33 years of my life, my body has just been running on Lord knows what. Just on its effort alone and not from any assistance from me. If I'm being honest, I have given it very little assistance to help it run effectively and even better than how it's supposed to. And so there had to be an acknowledgement of that God gave me this body as a gift, and I've just treated it as a bystander. I've treated it as just like a secondary thought thing where it's like, let's go. And then part of what I also had to recognize is the many unsafe spaces that I have placed my body in. Spaces where my body, I could feel was not comfortable. Where I could feel that my body was not at ease. And when your body is not at ease. But I stayed. And I recognized that was an injustice to my body. As an entity of its own, there were spaces where, of course, when I was younger, where I didn't have a choice, where I was placed in unsafe spaces, and that brought trauma to my body. But then even as an adult, there are so many spaces where I overstayed my welcome, where I shouldn't have. And I realized that my body absorbed that, right? And it can be like as simple as friendships where all there is just a negative speak. And you sit there and you start twitching, and if you bite your finger, you start biting your nails. You start fidgeting, and it's telltale signs that your body is not comfortable. And those spaces that I myself put myself in time and time and time again. And that's not a very loving thing to do, And so I had to acknowledge that, oh my goodness, I haven't always treated you or given you the agency that you deserve. And I thought back to relationships, like we speak now about consent and the importance of consent. And I mean, I'm gonna segue a little bit, but there's a reason why when there's an assault, a sexual assault, right? The body clamps up. The body literally does not open up. That when somebody is engaging in a sexual act and it is a consensual sexual act, there's an opening, right? There are fluids that are transmitted. There's an opening and there's a welcoming. When there's a sexual assault, the body literally clamps up and somebody can bruise because the body recognizes that this is not supposed to happen. I have not allowed for this to happen. And so that means that the body is an entity in and of itself that is deserving of agency. And when we allow ourselves to be put in spaces where, again, our bodies are put in the back burner, where that agency is not recognized, and we feel the discomfort of that body, we feel the dis-ease of their body, but we do nothing to remove it. I mean, obviously there's spaces where you can't do that, but in our gatherings and the people that we surround ourselves with, I think it matters. So I really started toying with this idea of, what are the ways that I have let my body down? What are the ways where I have not created a safe space in this body. Then I say that I want to regulate my nervous system. Then I say I want to figure out how to handle anxiety better. It's like, how? When you're so disconnected from the body, how will you regulate your nervous system? How will you handle your anxiety when you don't even know how to soothe this body? You don't know how to work with it. You don't know how to listen to it. You don't know what it needs. You don't know the signals that it gives you. And when it does give you those signals, you don't honor them. And just starting to ask that really made me reflect and consider just how terribly I've treated my body. And I can make so many other examples. And I think particularly it's so sensitive with women because we are taught from such a young age to hate everything about our bodies and all its functions. Like the moment you start growing any type of anything in your body, it's like, oh man, this is terrible. And then there's also the shame that comes from family, from people around you. Oh, you think you're this now because you've grown boobs. Oh, you think, then it's like this thing. And then, even how we cover it, it's like covering from a place of shame, covering from a place of like, this is not supposed to be seen. This is not, there's so much shame that we carry. And it's like, we think that it disappears into the ether, but it is actually absorbed by the same body that you're taught to hate, the same body you're taught to feel ashamed of, stores all of that hate, stores all of that shame. And then you wonder why you feel so disconnected from it. You wonder why you don't love yourself. It's like it's been drilled into you. But now I'm like, okay, now I'm a grown-up. What does it mean for me to start to really repair the broken relationship between my body and myself? And it really started with me being honest about the ways that I have caused the fracture, right? The ways that society have caused the fracture, but then also the ways that I have added and caused that fracture myself. And like I was saying, particularly with women, it's really difficult because we're living in a time where there's so much health issues for women. PCOS, fibroids, endo, there's so much that is just going on, and we know where it's coming from, right? We know it's the food, we know it's the chemicals. You just saw I'm sure everybody's seen it at this point, the study that came out about all the sanitary pads and the chemicals that are in them that actually alter your hormone and hormone levels and all of that stuff. So it's already a mess. But I do want to say that we are not going to heal our bodies by shaming them. We're not going to heal our bodies through the fad diets. We're not going to heal our bodies through gym 7 days out of the 7 without actually checking in with our bodies, without recognizing them as an entity and starting to ask, what does this body need from me? And with all of the things, with all the odds that are already stacked against this body, what does it look like for me to create a better relationship with you? With all the ideas of what beauty looks like, with all the ideas of which shape is better, whether is it what is in? Is it a slimmer figure and a bigger bum, or is it a bigger bum and whatever? Is it eyebrows that are like this? Is it hair that's like this? With all of that we're constantly consuming, what does it look like to really, really kind of quiet down the noise and go into now this body, the one that you've been given, and saying, okay, but what is it that you need? What would it take for you to function better? And what led me to that was I had my first kinesiology session, and it was groundbreaking, because what kinesiology is essentially, I think I call it body therapy. So instead of talk therapy, where you kind of sit there and you go through your traumas, you speak about what happened, and why, and how it made you feel, What kinesiology does is they essentially test where certain stresses lie in your body, and they get feedback from your body in terms of what certain experiences were like, and where you stand. And one of the things I'm really grateful for is that I'm such an open-minded person. If I wasn't, I wouldn't have even known. So there's a kinesiologist by my place, and I walk there every day, and I was always so interested to be like, what is this thing? How does it work? And after I had this conversation, I thought, okay, I've written letters to my body, but I don't know if that's enough. And one of the things that I was also struggling with is like, we're taught like in order to release trauma, we need to grieve. And it's like, okay, but practically, what does that look like? How do I know that I've grieved enough that the trauma is no longer in my body? Like, no one's ever taught me that, right? And so when I went to my, now I can say my kinesiologist, because I've went a couple of times, it was such a cathartic experience. And what was really interesting, and that's when I also learned that there was such a disconnect between this mind, body, and soul triad in my case. Because when I went there, so I kind of get onto the table. We had a discussion beforehand. And then she does this test where she kind of sees, okay, when you had this experience, so let's say when you heard that your mom and dad were getting a divorce, something like that, how stressful would you say that was for you, you know? So she asks me something like that, and I go, I'd say like it was between a 6 and a 7. You know, she says, okay, cool. Then she does this thing with my body where now she kind of tests what the body stress levels were for that kind of event. She tests the body goes, it was a 10, ma'am. And I go, oh, hectic. And there were so many other examples of this where we were doing it, where she would ask me about an experience, ask me what I thought like the stress level was. I explain it to her, checks the body is at a much higher level. And then there was somewhere for the body it was less. And I found this so interesting. But again, it took me back to that same point where I was like, I intellectualize a lot of these experiences. And in my head, I thought, oh no, that's not that bad. But it turns out my body was experiencing it at a much greater level. And so this really started making me think, oh my goodness, there are so many things that I don't even know that my body experienced as really, really traumatic, that I just walked past. That I was just like, oh yeah, that happened, you know. And then when I find myself in similar situations again, and I start to clam up and I have these weird sensations, I don't understand. I'm like, wait, why am I so stressed? Why is this? And it's like, no, because for the body, this kind of interaction takes it back to a similar interaction and. And so I really started thinking about, okay, so I have to be able to recognize when I'm going through something that I go through it at a soul level, I go through it at a mind level, but I also go through it at a body level. And this is something that I had never thought of before. But then I also realized that there's a power in that. And I thought back to the relationship that David had with his being, right? I loved, you know, in certain scriptures where he says like, my soul, why are you so downcast? You know, and I was like, huh. And in some iterations it says my heart, you know. And so it's like, okay, there is an acknowledgement that his soul or his heart exists as an entity and that it has this feeling. And then there's this question of what's going on? Why do you feel this way? And then, though, the power then in that is, after asking that, then he gives a command, right? He gives a command to say, no, but we will praise God. It's like literally, it's like, no, cheer up, And I also love in scripture where he says, let everything within me praise his name. Again, there's that acknowledgement that everything inside me must come into agreement with what my being has said. So in my head, then I realize, okay, just because I acknowledge that my body is an entity in and of itself does not then mean that I allow it to drive the car and take me wherever it is that it wants to take me. It actually means that my body is reliant on me to be its driver. My body is reliant on me to tell it where to go. But I must first acknowledge where it is first, right? And that's why I love that David first asks, like, why do you feel this way? And then he says, believe in God, and trust in God. And so it's like, okay, I can't command my body to feel a certain way or to do certain things if I haven't first asked where it's at, if I haven't first acknowledged where it's sitting, because chances are where it's sitting is because of what I have done, and so through starting this process of kinesiology and getting feedback from my own body about what it feels, and getting feedback from my own body about what experiences were really traumatic to it, I then allowed myself to take charge of myself and look at my body, reflect back to my body and say, I see you, I acknowledge you, and to also say, I'm sorry. And that experience in and of itself was so incredible, and it made me understand so much about even other cultural practices that I don't necessarily adhere to, but where there's this honoring of the body, where there's this understanding that just because you're dead, like the body also needs to understand what's going on, to understand where it is now, because it's lived, it's housed you, and then suddenly it's torn away. And so it really, really made me have such reverence. It made me have such reverence for my body, but it also allowed me to give it what it needs, and it allowed me to be able to ask it, like, what is missing? Where have I let you down? And it also, I'm trying to find this quote, like, that I really, really loved, where I think it was by Carl Jung, and he was talking about, I think I'm going to find it here. Okay, yeah. Whoever looks outside dreams, but who looks within awakens. And that also made me realize that, like, the other thing that makes me keep dragging my body, like, with me is because I'm looking at things externally. Like, I'm looking at what more do I need? What new resolutions do I need to be making? And whereas if I go within, that's actually where an awakening comes. And I think sometimes, yes, we can dream, but sometimes there is a place for awakening what's inside. And so many of these emotions that are held inside our body need a release. And what was crazy about that kinesiology session that I had was there was so much crying. I was never ready for it. And I really went in there so high-spirited, feeling like I was fine, only to find that my body was so heavy laden. And when I walked out, I felt so much lighter. And now I've really just been on that journey of talking to my body. Like, when I'm gonna do a presentation, I prepare my body beforehand now. I say, hey, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna stand in front of a couple of people, and we're gonna talk, and we're gonna bring these ideas, and I want you not to panic, okay? I want you to relax. This is a good thing. This is, as opposed to just you wake up one day, you've got a presentation, you're so nervous. You don't even take the time to soothe. You don't know what it looks like. You don't even take the time to soothe this body. You don't take the time to prepare this body to say, this is what we're about to do. This is the intention for what we're about to do. And this is what I'm hoping, to come out of it. And ever since I've started doing that, again, it's been such a game changer. I have been trying to figure out for so many years how to better deal with my anxiety. And for the first time, I feel like I am at a place where I've experienced almost none of that anxiety. And all it took was me acknowledging the place that my body has when it comes to my life. Like actually giving my body a better role, understanding that it's not just a thing that I just move around. And I find that now, just by telling my body, just by preparing my body for certain experiences that I'm going to have, they literally happen so seamlessly. What would be stressful, I no longer find stressful. And so there's a reason why I said at the beginning was that for me, it's not about finding the balance between body, spirit, and mind. It's about agreement. It's about coming into agreement or bringing all of these entities into agreement to say, as Sbo, what is it that I am here to do? And what is it that I would like you guys to help me with? What is our mandate? And because it's important that you get there, because if your mandate is to be the best in your field of whatever it is that you do, and you think that you will only get there by being strong-willed and strong-minded and by having a strong sense of self and your spirit and whatever it is, and you leave your body in that process, you will have such a big shock of your life. Where now you've got all of these ideas, you've prayed about every single part of that journey, but your body's not coming to the party because when you need to execute, you're so tired. Or you get to a point where you've got burnout, now you're sick. We've seen it happen time and time again with people who are really career driven, right? Who are coming in at 7 o'clock in the morning and leaving 12 in the evening, whatever the case is, because they're just like, I'm grinding. And then the body pushes. That's the thing about it, right? Like it understands its mandate and it will work with what you give it. It pushes until it can't anymore. And now the person has a stroke and they can't do anything. That's when you're going to realize that this is not a thing to be left behind. This is not a thing to be treated like a second-class citizen. This is not something to be treated like it does not exist and that it doesn't have its own function. And it's really sad that it takes somebody getting sick, like it takes somebody losing certain functions of their body for them to understand and to honor the role that the body plays in this triad. And for me, and part of what I was thinking about that was like when I'm a big fan, still am a big fan of Medreamy, and there's so many, and he recently passed away from ALS, and I was just thinking about how horrible it must be to not be able to use certain functions of your body, to want to pick this up, but to not be able to know that like your leg should move this way and that way, but you can't. And I really, really think that part of what we're struggling with is God has given us this incredible intelligence, like our minds, our bodies, our soul. It is, no scientist has even really come close to fully understanding how these things run, because they are absolutely incredible. But what we are also not doing a great job of is going within and understanding what each of these entities need from us in order for them to run effectively. And so part of the reason why I thought that this year I'm not doing these things of like, oh, I want to be this weight. I want to be I want to go back within myself. I want to see where my body is, what it needs, and then I want to give it a mandate. I want to heal it first, but then I want to give it a mandate to say, okay, guys, this is what we're working on. And I would like us all to come into agreement, and then I can command it to say, this is where we're going, but then we will be working together. And I think what, as a parting shot, what's really important for us to start thinking about is, what does it look like for you to start getting that alignment? And yes, I know that when we're scrolling on social media, there is no end to the things that we should be doing to our bodies. There's no end to the things we should be eating, the things we shouldn't be eating. There's so much information that's coming at us. And I think a lot of the times then you just kind of, you push it and you don't check, but body, where are you? What do you need? And your body speaks. Your body does give you feedback. And what I would also really love, this is an exercise that I did, is for you to take time and to think about whatever traumas your body has experienced, and to really see them not now from your experience and as you, but to see them from the body's perspective, and look at what it looks like for your body to find catharsis in that experience. Like for me, what it looked like was really going back to it, saying to my body, I see you, I'm so sorry that happened to you. I'm so sorry you were put in a position where there was this neglect. I'm so sorry you were put in this position where, there was this kind of trauma. And thank you for staying. Thank you for still staying, regardless of that trauma. And I just want you to know that in future, I will do a better job of protecting you. I want you to know that I'm here for you. I want you to know that I love you. I think we talk a lot about positive self-speak from a mental perspective, but it also you really need to start thinking about what is filtering into your mind, but also your body when you're saying certain things, when you're speaking about yourself. It's not to say that you don't set goals for your body. It's not to say that you're not like, okay, maybe I need to lose weight, but how do you facilitate that journey? Have you spoken to your body about the process of losing weight? Why? You want to. And I think that matters, to be able to say, hey, so the reason why I'm going to the gym and I'm doing this in this way is because I want us to be healthier. There's certain things that I'd like to do that I feel like I can't do because of the limitations of the weight that I'm in, whatever the case is. I think if we're acknowledging that we have this triad and that each of these entities in this triad have a role to play, we can't have one that's functioning at 10% and some that are functioning at 80 and 60 and think that the system is going to go well and think that the system is going to run effectively. And so before you get into, whatever boxes you're trying to tick, go back to self. Let there be an awakening there. Let there be an acknowledgement of certain spaces and things that you've neglected there. And look at what it looks like to get to a place where there's agreement. And then you'll see that your body will work with you and not against you. And that's really, really where I am. And it's completely shifted everything that I do, but it's also helped me see even greater results in what my body's able to do. I've been able to cultivate even more discipline because of the conversations that I've had. I meditate daily, and what I love about my meditation ritual is it literally repeats the same thing. It says, I am not my body, I am not even my mind. I'm not the body, I'm not the mind. I'm not the body, I'm not even the mind. I'm not the body, I'm not even the mind. And what that does is it allows you to be able to create the space between the two, where you understand that you're not you're not controlled by it, but it is a part of you, and you have a big role in helping it really, really function impeccably. And now that I've started doing that, even on days when I want to miss my meditation, I don't. My body gets me up. I walk every day. I couldn't experience that discipline before. And I think it's because there was that disconnect where I was just like, you need to be more disciplined. I'm just going to push you to do this. I'm going to push you to do that. And it's like, no, don't do that. Now that it feels like there's more harmony, and I'm seeing that discipline. So shaming, hating ourselves, punishing ourselves into this kind of discipline structures is not the way to go. The way to go is figuring out, how do we create harmony between all of these three, the same way, that we learn that the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit have done. So thank you so much for joining me. And I think this is such an important conversation for the beginning of the year, because your goals can run away with you, and you forget what's important. You forget what matters. And I mean, for some people, for you, maybe the thing you've left behind is a soul, your spirit. Maybe the thing that is running the show is the mind. The point is really to understand that there's a you, and then there's all of these entities, but they need to be catered to. They need to be taken care of, so that, and then when they're taken care of, they can trust you to drive. They can trust you to lead them wherever it is that you've decided you want to go. And then they can help you and aid you to get there in the best way possible. So thank you so much for joining me. Let me know what your relationship with your body is like. Do you hate it? Do you love it? Do you listen to it? Do you honor it? Do you safeguard it? And if not, what does it look like for you to start doing that? See you next time. Bye.